Thank you for everybody who coming here.
Hi, guys. Hello, everybody. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Sorry, early live chats got the best of me. I tried to come as prepared as I could. Hello, testing. Can you guys hear me? All right, let's get this show on the road. Joining me later is Matt Scaff, and we will be talking about everything jiu-jitsu news and also a little bit of MMA. I know it's been a while since you guys have heard me talk MMA, but in recent news, the GFL draft. Audio good? Thank you, Lazy Bed. Yo, Lazy Bed be in all the important news breaking group chats. I see him in Morning Combat. I see him in Ariel Helwani's show. So he knows everything that's going on in the MMA world specifically. But for now, we're going to talk about a few different things going on in jiu-jitsu specifically, combat sports overall. I think it's a really big time in general for team combat sports. And so we're going to get some honest opinions about the team format in combat sports, because a lot of people seem to think it doesn't really work. But I have faith that the team aspect can really build a lot of suspense, especially working with PGF so much. And then upcoming on my birthday, February 8th, Polaris is going to be putting on an event, Polaris 31. It's going to be Team USA Team America. It was North America, but now they have Julian Espinoza, who's from Costa Rica. So I'm gonna just call it America because he's not from North America, and versus Team Europe. So I'm gonna show you guys this lineup that they have right here. Very, very stacked. And honestly, people that are pretty familiar with the Polaris setup. And Polaris is one of the first jiu-jitsu promotions that is incorporating the CJI rule set for their super fights. And in the super fight is going to be a female battle. It is Helena Cravar, the reigning title holder, versus star on the rise, Anna Lopez Beard. And she's coming in really confident. I remember when I had Matt Scaff on last time. Oh, he's here right now. He said that the way Nia Blackman was going to beat Helena Cravar was to be physical with her, be dominant. When we saw Helena Cravar lose against Mo, it was kind of in that kind of scenario. So Anna Lopez Beard is a very aggressive girl. And we're going to welcome in our guest, Matt Scaff. Hello, Matt Scaff.
What's up, guys? Sorry I'm a couple minutes late. Ran into a little bit of traffic, but yeah, what's up? It's nice to be back.
It's all good. I mean, starting this live chat at 9:30 was very interesting for me. I went to bed at midnight and then woke up at 5 and I was like, okay, let me get everything done. But then Craig was on a flight, and whenever he's on a flight, he's bored. So then we're just talking stuff. And I'm like, Craig, are you going to tell me anything interesting for my live chat? And no, he never tells me anything interesting. He just likes to yell at me. He's like, when's your next podcast, you lazy fuck? I'm like, okay, fine. But we won't have anything to talk about because there's not that much CJI news, but there is other jiu-jitsu news coming up. And like I just showed them, Matt, this Polaris lineup, February 8th, North American squad versus European squad, team versus team. Is there any particular matchup that you really hope comes out of this card?
Oh, yeah, it's easy. I mean, you look at there's two big ones. I mean, you've got Jozef and PJ Barch. I think is kind of the obvious one. And at the last Polaris event, a lot of people thought that was going to be the finals, and then Levi Leary Jones ended up beating Jozef in the semifinals, and then PJ ended up winning that $20K prize. But I think PJ Barch versus Joseph Chen is definitely a fan favorite. And I think Matheus, I think Matheus Szczynski is one of the scariest human beings in the world. I mean, his ability to find a submission and just almost instantly get a break is absolutely terrifying. And I think him versus either Kieran Kachuk or even we already saw PJ and him at ADCC, but I think him versus a Kieran Kachuk would be, or Chris Wojcik would be very, very, very interesting as well.
Yeah, it's definitely a stacked lineup. And I feel like Owen Jones is popping up on all these cards. Flow Grappling put him as the breakout grappler of the year. So can you tell me what it is about his style or maybe his personality that makes him so fun to watch?
You know, as fans, we look for guys that take risks. And there's guys that have won championships, you know, and this is something that Gordon talked a lot about. And the way they won, it's just they didn't get a lot of fans. Maybe they won by a ref's decision or a stalling call or a penalty. A guy like Owen Jones is going to push the pace the entire time, and he's going to take risks even when he doesn't have to. And he's got a very charismatic, he's young, charismatic, and people like he's not near as confident maybe as like a Conor McGregor. I mean, that's probably pushing it a little too far, but he definitely has some of that cocky, UK, and he's kind of like a UK bad boy, and I think a lot of people are really interested in seeing him compete and develop. He's got a lot of events coming up, and I'm really interested to see how the next few months shake out for Owen Jones.
Yeah, I'm very excited for this team Europe. They also have Owen O'Flanagan, who I met through CJI, and then I met him again in Polaris when he took a last second match. He won that one. And then also Taylor Perlman. And these guys all had all subs at trials. So can you talk to me about how, obviously it's one thing to be a submission hunter, but then you're able to do it when it really matters at the trials or even at ADCCs. So can you talk to me about going 100% submission rates at the ADCC trials and how big of a deal that is?
Oh, I mean, it's just incredible because you're going in against guys who have been training some guys in their entire lives to make ADCC. That is the big one. You're looking for that golden ticket. And ADCC special because there's no belt ranks. It's not like IBJJF. You don't have to have a certain amount of points. You don't have to be a certain belt level. If you think you're tough enough and if you think you have the ability to make a run, then sign up. It doesn't matter if you train jiu-jitsu. You could be a karate guy and just go out and grapple sometimes, and you could jump in. And I think people have always really loved that about the trials, is that it's not invitation. I mean, it's just anybody and everybody. And so, yeah, the first couple of rounds, of course, the favorites are going to get subs. But when you start looking at some of the quarterfinals, semifinals, and final matches, and to go, 6 for 6 or 7 for 7 with all subs, it really cements that you're a different type of grappler and that you're a level above your peers and that you're ready to take the next step, I think, to grappling stardom.
And Paolo in the group chat saying, such a sick lineup. This is all happening February 8th. It's Polaris squads, and it is going to be a quintet style rule set. So I think the interesting part about the quintet style is that they're going to be going in and they're not going to know their team's order. So when it comes to that, Matt, you're a coach. How do you strategize for that? Is there strategy? I mean, I know jiu-jitsu is like only one person on the mat. So like what kind of strategy could be implemented when you're dealing with it?
There's a lot of strategy. And I actually just coached some of our guys down. We did Zapatero's team event and we actually won. So we won 3 team matches. It was sick, but I was very strategic about the order that we were going through. And so typically, and I've seen guys teams make this mistake. They think that, okay, worst case scenario, we put our best guy last. And so if things go all wrong, well, he's got a shot to be the hero. But the issue is that, let's say, you're looking at a lineup like there. So let's just say they go Joseph Chen or Owen O'Flanagan. Owen O'Flanagan's our best guy. He's big, he's strong, he's a sub hunter. We're going to put him last. Well, let's say now that they're down a guy. So in theory, Owen would have to get 2 subs to win. But if you just go out there and you tell, hey, just go out there and get a draw. And so we see this all the time where you can draw out the best guy. And especially if it's just, hey, we've got 2 guys to get a draw with their best guy, just get a draw and we win. And so typically you want to put your best guy third. You want to put him in the middle. You want to put somebody, maybe your best submission artist first, a guy that could go out there and potentially get quick submission. So, for instance, with the UK team, I would probably go Matheus Jasinski first, probably Taylor Perlman or Joseph Chin second. I'd probably go Owen third, Owen O'Flanagan. And then I would keep Santiri last, because I think Santiri is a guy that doesn't have a lot of submission potential. He's definitely the worst submission. Very, very good grappler, but he's the worst submission potential. So that's kind of how I would look at it. Is I would put you kind of want your first and third guy to set the pace. Especially that first guy. It's very important. You can go out there and get a sub. Man, it's a really swings thing in your team's favor. But I see a lot of people like, no, we're going to go fourth and fifth, our best guys, and let and it's like, that's not the way to do it, because then you put so much pressure on your guys, because maybe you're down 2 guys now.
I think part of that is a little, I guess, scary as a viewer, knowing that part of the strategy could be to get a draw in some cases. I think that could kind of be something that people don't look forward to sometimes.
Well, that's the one issue with Quintet. And we see this in other sports, right? Like sometimes you see, like in soccer, you'll see teams just, okay, we're going to pack the box. We're going to put all 11 of our guys on our same side of the field, and we're going to try and get 1 or 2 counterattacks. And a sport like basketball, which I know you love and have been doing some reporting down there with Florida State, the shot clock was introduced to, hey, you can't just hold the ball. So if we were going against the number 1 team in the country, they used to call it 4-corner, right, where they would just pass around the different corners. And some of the game scores in the 30s, 20s, and 30s would be like 21-19. And so we've seen in some of the past, Gordon Ryan, when he was on Quintet, sometimes your job is, hey, I've got it. Like a guy like me, I'm not tapping Gordon Ryan. My best chance for the team, the best thing I could do for the team is to be as boring as possible, try to run away, try to stand back up as fast as possible, and avoid getting in any honest, like, jiu-jitsu entanglement. So that's the one issue with Quintet format, is it is a possibility.
But sometimes it can honestly make it even more entertaining, because I think about a time, I think it was Nathan Orchard had to be the stopper against Ethan Krellinston. And even that so like, I feel like you just have to have a really good understanding of the rule set and what they're trying to accomplish, versus coming at it from not understanding the rule set and you're like, oh, well, why is there, no submission happening right now? But I don't know. I have faith that the jiu-jitsu community and the athletes are really starting to take more responsibility for bringing the entertainment. I think William Tackett had a good Instagram post or YouTube video that basically talked about, like, we can have all these promotions, we can have all these big grand prizes, but at the end of the day, it comes down to the athlete wanting to put on a show and wanting to be an entertainer. So yeah, I guess to be devil's advocate to my own question, I think the athletes are really going to put everything on the line to be entertaining. So, yeah. Were you going to say something?
Well, I was going to say, the athletes they picked for the most part are known for, especially you look at that European squad. I mean, every single one of those guys are submission hunters. And I mean, that's an incredible lineup. That European squad is going to be very, very difficult to beat.
I know. And also, Mike Perez was a late substitution. It was originally Jacob Couch. So what do you think about that switch up?
Well, when you look at Mike Perez, it's funny. I was I didn't even know we were going to talk about this, but I was kind of doing some own self-research into this. And you look at Devontae Johnson and Mike Perez, their sub rates are very, very low. So if you can go on BJJ Heroes, what I love about the community is BJJ Heroes, you can just type in a guy, you write Gordon Ryan BJJ Heroes, and it's going to have all of his matches, like professional matches, on there. And they have it all broken down from his win-losses to his submission rate, like how many subs he has in his wins, how many times he's been subbed when he's lost. And it makes it pretty easy to, like, study a guy. And you can kind of go back and go, okay, well, my guy's got a match, or Mike Perez is going to be on this event. What does his style look like for a Quintet? And Mike Perez is incredibly difficult to sub. He has have a couple of really big victories by submission. He's very good at guillotines, and he does have some footlocks in his arsenal. And so I think Mike Perez is a guy that is exciting. He's a good wrestler. I think he's a good addition. I think he's a real good addition. He's definitely a little different style than Jacob Couch, but I'm a fan. I like Mike Perez. I like watching him compete.
Yeah, I saw him compete for the first time at the ADCC West Coast Trials, where he beat Vince Pizzuto in the finals to be number one. And that is obviously a huge size discrepancy. So he's obviously very, very entertaining. Is Couch injured, or was he just unable to make it? I'm not 100% sure. I just know that he is out. I wanted to get an interview with him because I feel like getting an interview with anyone from the Pedigo Submission Wrestling squad is just an entertaining thing to have. So yeah, I will definitely do some digging for you. But as far as I know, I think maybe it was just complications with the date. All right, guys, let us start talking about some CJI2 news. This is like the year of team events in combat sports. We're going to talk about GFL as well. Matt, I don't even know if you have heard of the GFL.
I have.
Really?
Yeah, we were talking about that a couple of days ago. One of my guys from the gym was breaking down the rosters with the different cities, and they've signed some incredible athletes. I mean, there's some insane teams on there with Sage Northcutt and Tony Ferguson, and I mean, it's pretty crazy.
Yeah, we're gonna dive into that a little bit if you have time after we talk about CJI2 stuff.
I'm very well aware. I mean, it's an interesting. It's very interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if you knew. Like, I knew that you are an MMA coach and that they're like it really broke MMA Twitter and stuff. But I was like, I wonder if like my jujitsu normie friends have heard about GFL stuff, and I guess so. So there's your answer. Isn't there a WNO event on that day as well? So February 8th is Saturday. February 7th is WNO. I believe Keith Krikorian will be going up against Pato. So that should be a really fun one. Which honestly brings me to the topic of the big news with 10th Planet announcing their team super early for CJI2. They announced their list, one of the only teams to have officially announced it. So, Matt, I wanted to get your take. They have at under 66 kilogram division, Gio Martinez, under 77, Alan Sanchez, under 88 kilograms, PJ Barch, under 99, Ryan Aiken, and over 99, Kyle Bain. So what do you think about that 10 Planet lineup?
This is funny. I think at this point, I'm kind of known as I have a tough time, in all honesty, I'm not understanding how Andy Varela doesn't have a spot in this lineup, and that doesn't mean, I mean, Alan Sanchez is an incredible grappler. I'm definitely a fan. I mean, Alan just won EBI, but Andy Varela's got 2 wins over PJ Barch, and he's 2-0 against PJ. And I think he might be 2-0 against, I know he's at least 1-0 against Alan. And I just have a hard time understanding, because like Andy's too had matches with some of the biggest and best guys in the sport. I think he's got more experience. It's just hard for me to understand how he's being left out of this, And I think with 10th Planet, and especially some of the bigger associations, you're going to make some tough calls. I think with the Gio and Keith thing, I've always been pretty like, is it Gio or going to be Keith? It should be Keith. And again, I completely agree, and the Gio's, again, an incredible grappler. Obviously, I mean, but at the same time, he's a little older, I feel like that was one of the big, criticisms of the quintet that was sent to Japan was there was a lot of older grapplers on there. I think the 10th Planet's team that ended up facing me in the finals, there was a lot of older guys, and so I think there's some young guns that are hungry. At the same time, it's a very good team. I mean, you're looking at PJ Barch, who is arguably one of the top 2 or 3 grapplers in the world at that 170 to 190. I mean, he, in a lot of people's minds, beat Mika. In my mind, he did. I've watched that match a few times, and again, I try to stay unbiased. I think he beat Mika. And then Ryan Aiken is on an absolute tear. What he did at PGF was just mind-blowing. I think Kyle Bain is really dangerous. And 10th Planet, I think one of their weaknesses is the heavyweights. Kyle Bain is by far, I think the best guy. I like to think, Travis Thomas, my guy coming up, he's going to be there very, very soon. But I think Kyle Bain's the obvious choice. But I do kind of have I think Keith and Andy would probably be better representatives in those spots. But at the same time, I mean, Eddie's the coach. He's the one making the decisions, and we'll see how it plays out.
Yeah, it's so funny that you started it off with saying how you don't understand how Andy isn't in it. I spoke with Andy, and this was his reaction to CJI2 News. Cards that you would like to be on, what are you like manifesting for yourself?
I mean, I would like to be on all the biggest cards, obviously, UFC Fight Pass, the NWO, CJI, and all that shit. I don't know if I'm going to be in CJI, I doubt it. It's too late now. Eddie dogged me, but it's okay. But for the most part, I think I'll get on most shows this year that are pretty big. I know PGF will have a new season, so I'll be pretty busy. I want to stay competitive, and I'm getting older, so no time to waste.
And when the news came out that Eddie was announcing the 10th Planet team, I was so surprised, and it honestly makes me feel like there should be two 10th Planet teams, the East Coast and the West Coast or something. Because it's just so big of like a group of people.
Yeah, there's a big group of people, but you know who the big three are of 77. It's PJ, Alon, and I'd say Kevin Burbage are coming up right now. Or not Burbage, Veering are like the three top 77. And unfortunately, I've beat them all multiple times. So.
I love how subtle he is when he talks about just beating them all. Like, he's not emotional about it. He's just like, plain and simple, I've beaten the guys that have been asked to compete.
I mean, again, it just really baffled. I don't understand, in that. And again, Andy's had just a phenomenal. He's just been phenomenal the past few years for 10th Planet, and he's represented. I mean, he's had multiple matches again against the best of the best, and even at CJI and at main character, he lost to Joseph Chen. But I mean, I think Joseph Chen's top 5 in the world. And I think stylistically, Andy is, I mean, I can't remember. He got tapped by Roberto Jimenez. Other than that, I mean, the dude is just a dog, And like I said, Alan Sanchez is a stud. He's very good. But I don't know. I think that's a very, especially hearing that, like Andy clearly wants to be on the team. So I just wondering what the issue is there. I don't know. Maybe him and Eddie have some beef or something. I don't know. And it is one of those weird things where you're talking about, and who knows, I might get a call and be like, Scaff, shut up. Like, you're not supposed to be talking about this. I don't know. But I just, sometimes decisions are made and it's hard to understand.
But what are your thoughts on the, a 10 Planet East Coast or West Coast? Just because there's literally one B team, there's one new wave school, or maybe there's.
I'm a fan.
There's so many 10 planets.
And I think I said this last time. I want to find out who the best team in the world is. I don't consider 10th Planet a team. I think there's a bunch of separate 10th Planet teams. Like 10th Planet Atlanta is a very good team. 10th Planet Vegas is a very good team. 10th Planet Freaks are a very good team, but they don't train together, I think most of these guys, Andy, again, sees those dudes as competition. I don't think he's not like, dude, me and, he mentioned those 3 guys. They're like, we're competitors. I'm undefeated against them. It's not like they're in the training room. And so, it's like the Kansas City Chiefs are getting ready to play the Philadelphia Eagles in the finals. It's not like they have that's their team. They've been training together all offseason, and it built up to this championship. And I think that's what makes team events really cool. I think sometimes some of these hey, we're just going to get a random group of people. I like guys that have blood, sweat, and tear, in the training room together, not just super teams, not just, it's kind of cool, but yeah. So, I mean, I know I hear you, Harps. Again, PJ, 100%. To me, it should be Andy, PJ. And in a perfect world, it wouldn't have been. It would have been Alan. My perfect 10th Planet team would have been Alan Sanchez, PJ, Andy, Ryan Aiken, and then either Kyle Bame or out there Travis Thomas in there because he's my boy. But those are special. I mean, Alan, it should be. I would like to see Alan, Andy, and PJ. I mean, that's the squad. Those dudes are. That's a killer squad right there.
And so many things could still change. Also, this post came from BJJ World TV, which works closely with CJI, but it's also been home to some of the funniest memes and potential super fights that aren't really realistic. So the BJJ World TV has a lot of Craig's antics intertwined with it, because Craig likes to throw curveballs at people and makes them want to expect different things going on. And so here's just one funny one that
Nuclear power plant's team won the championship 5 years running,
this
which
is the
makes
type of
her
content BJJ
the deadliest
World
woman on
does.
earth with a dodgeball. Ball me, Blazer. Show them, Fran. And that's just her changeup. End of demo. We are the Globo Gym Purple Cobras. And we will rock you.
It skipped the beginning, which was the best part. But I'm just trying to say that the
What?
source that this came
Well, not
from is
completely
very comical.
Pathetic.
Oh, hey, White. I didn't think that Nazi camp got out until 8. Did you decide to skip arts and crafts?
So if you don't have Instagram, that is some of the stuff that you're missing out on. And some of the announcements that they make, that's where I got the official team for 10th Planet. But again, like, since things are so early, maybe things could shift around. I feel like, I don't know, Eddie kind of went out of his way to make the announcement so early. So maybe there was like so much stress on it that he was just like, let me just put the team in so everyone stops bothering me. Or maybe this is the team that he really wants to stick with.
And at the end of the day, you know, you're going to have to make decisions, and you're going to hurt people's feelings, and some people are going to be able to question, you know. That's what happens always in team sports. Sometimes the starting quarterback gets pulled, and people are like, that's stupid. Why are you playing? Why'd you draft a rookie to take his spot? And then sometimes the rookie's incredible, and everyone's like, the coach is a genius. And sometimes the rookie's terrible, and they're like, the coach sucks. He's an idiot. Fire him, you know. And I just, again, I would love to see more and more just specific team things. Like, these are the guys, they train together, they're buddies, you know. But when I'm thinking about an all-star, like, checkmat team, you know, you're going to have the Tackett's here, and they're going to get some dude from, you know, Europe over here. It's like, you know, like Adam Rosinski and the Tackett's, they don't train together. Like, they're not teammates, you know, just because they both wear a checkmat. Like, I don't know, you know, it's, that's my feelings on it. But at the same time, I'm really interested to see the rest of the teams.
Yeah, I cannot wait. I'm wondering when all that news is going to be coming out. I know that they had listed out a lot of potential super fights. And one of them we wanted to get the people's take on. You'll probably have an opinion on this too, Matt Scaff, and we'll look at some of the options that people laid out for us. But what would be a fun matchup for Danielle Kelly? I'm just going to throw up some of the answers from CJI fans, and some of them are just ridiculous ones.
Of course, I saw a couple already. Yeah.
But I'm curious which one you think would be the perfect one for Danielle Kelly. I feel like she's a big draw, obviously coming off of, you know, 2 tough losses to Maisa. Some people were saying Maisa again, but I'm like, no, I think we need to go in a different direction.
Yeah, I completely agree. I like the Jillian Robertson answer. I think Jillian's a very, very good grappler in the UFC, submission hunter. I think she'd be really, really interesting. She's got a pretty decent sized name. Thing with especially some of the smaller weight classes for women, I think a lot of the bigger stars are in that kind of 135 to 155 pound range. I mean, everybody's talking about, you know, the matchup that the UFC Fight Pass just made. You know, where you're looking at Adele, and yeah, you're looking at those ladies right there. I mean, they're incredible. I think with the smaller, you know, Maisa is definitely the best. She's really dominated that division. Outside of her, I mean, you know, you could be maybe looking at like an Alex Enriquez. But I don't think the star power is there. So that's where I would kind of look at, like, Danielle Kelly has made a pretty big name for herself. I would look outside of those divisions, and I would look for like a Jillian Robertson, I think would be a really, really cool, or maybe a Rose Namajunas, you know. I think Rose is a pretty good, but I think Jillian would probably be the matchup I'd be most interested in.
So definitely some potential there for that super fight. I know we did have a few other options. When I was talking to Craig earlier, he was, you know, just having casual conversations with Tom Hardy, and that was a potential super fight that they put up against Zuck. But
Danielle Kelly. I was like, Danielle Kelly versus Tom Hardy. I mean,
sorry.
I was like,
my ADHD.
Honestly, that would be a sick matchup. I'd be 100%. in to watch
would
that.
be amazing. We do need some type of like freak matchup to.
That's what I'm
to
saying.
attract
You
the
could,
casuals.
that's it. Daniel Kelly versus Tom Hardy. Like,
Oh my
man.
God. I love how we just accidentally came up with that. And
Yeah.
then we, of course, have to talk about one that a lot of fans are very, very excited about. I just got done listening to an older podcast with Keenan Cornelius and Craig Jones, and this is their words, not mine, but they're Eskimo bros, basically, for both beating Nicholas Marigali.
Yes. Yes.
Keenan Cornelius's dad is the man that introduced BJ Penn to jiu-jitsu. So I'm going to Hawaii tomorrow. Keenan Cornelius is from Hawaii. His dad introduced BJ Penn to jiu-jitsu. That's huge. I guess he moved to San Diego at one point and became a black belt under Andre Galvao, and now has a really good relationship with Craig that they might run a super fight in the gi.
Oh, Keenan versus Craig.
Yeah.
Okay.
What?
I mean, Keenan is he's an innovator. When you look at modern gi jiu-jitsu, Keenan Cornelius he's got to be one of the 4 or 5 most important grapplers for modern gi style. He's super, super innovative, very, very, very just been very influential. And with Craig, I mean, I know he posted, I saw on the YouTube channel, he was doing some gi rounds and he was jacking some dudes up, but you would have to think Keenan would be a huge fan. I mean, I could see Keenan tying him in a knot because Keenan's gi game is as tricky as it gets.
Yeah, so that will definitely be a fun potential matchup that we could see. They also put in the headlines a Marcelo Garcia versus Khron Gracie. Gracie defeated Shinya Aoki at a Metamoris 2 in Los Angeles. So I feel like keeping him with like, I don't know, people were comparing Metamoris to CJI, and now, you know, we're going to hit CJI 2. So that I think that would be kind of I guess, poetic to have Khron Gracie on it. And in 2013, Khron Gracie submitted Gary Tonin, JT Torres, and Octavio Souza at ADCC. So is that a matchup that you think would be interesting for Marcelo Garcia, or?
I've got to be honest. I'm done with Khron Gracie. After his last few UFC performances, they've just been so terrible. I honestly don't want to see him compete again. I'm telling you, this is the match. This is the match I'm going to be shouting at. If I could talk to Craig Jones, if I could just get one match, it is Marcelo Garcia versus Gary Tonin. That is one of the top 10 matches that you could make all time. Two guys that, I mean, there's a little bit of the old rivalry when you think about Henzo's versus Marcelo back in the day. Marcelo Garcia versus Gary Tonin is, I mean, that is the matchup to make. I mean, you would sign me up. $50 pay-per-view, 100%. I'm dropping $50 just for that matchup. Both those guys deserve it for what they've done. I mean, Gary Tonin has put on legendary match after legendary match, and I just think there's so much into that. And I think Gary, you know, he's in his third. It's not like we're throwing Marcelo out to a young buck, but I want to see Marcelo versus Gary Tonin just because I think that is the dopest match. I mean, with Khron, like I said, people are kind of saying it's like I don't even know how much he's been training. Marcelo looked what he did to almost should say Aoki. What he did to Eminari, I mean, Eminari usually is very aggressive. He's still like he'll get a little bit of offense off. Marcelo absolutely ran through him. He won every second of that match. And from what people are saying, what Marcelo's doing in the training rooms, you know, they're saying he hasn't lost a step. And, you know, I'm not saying, again, throw him to one of the Ruotolo brothers yet. But who knows, you know? To me, this is the most interesting story. If Marcelo could make a run back to the top, which I think a lot of people think he's capable of, this is the most exciting story of 2025 and beyond, in my opinion.
Yes, and like you mentioned, January 24th was when Marcelo made his comeback after 14 years and taking on Eminari. He got that north-south choke. And before that, I interviewed him and spoke to him a little bit about CJI. Here were his thoughts.
How entertaining it was.
My experience was just as a coach to go there, coach my student Matheus. And to see him have the opportunity to fight for $1 million, that was huge. That was blow my mind. I don't think I can describe like for myself what is to be able to see this and to be that close to have a students to be able to make $1 million, because I know the potential of Matheus. Obviously he ended up winning that, but like it was huge to me. And obviously it makes you feel like, oh, I wish like I could fight for $1 million dollars. That would be like definitely help like any family, you know what I mean, who come handy, you know what I mean. And to be able to see this in this life, you know what I mean, was amazing, you know, for sure.
He's so great, so genuine. I mean, I think that Matheus Diniz fight versus Kade was one that people were very, very interested in.
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, especially with Matheus cutting so much weight and being bigger for the division. Oh my gosh, look who's in the building. B-Mac attack. We're just about to send him a freaking link to join. But what do you remember about the Kade Ruotolo versus Matheus Diniz? Did you see it live, the submission?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think a lot of people remember the beginning, you know, where they got a little, you know, Kade threw a couple little strikes there. And when you're fighting the Ruotolos, you know, it's going to be it's a fight, you know. And there are jiu-jitsu matches where people go, oh, it's not a fight. Like, no, you're fighting the Ruotolos. You're fighting Andrew Tackett. You're in a fight. And I think a lot of people expected it to be a scrap, and Matheus was heavily favored. I mean, he'd beaten Craig. He's beaten a who's who. He's a 2-time ADCC champion. And I mean, just what Kade has done. Kade is really writing his story is going down. He's going to go down as one of the 5 greatest, I think, ever. I mean, he's already an ADCC champion, CJI champion, and who he beat to get there, like to win that title and win $1 million. I mean, he won $1 million. I think his legacy is just, it's already being written, and he's still so young. He's getting into MMA. I mean, I think there's definitely a world in 20 years where we're like, man, Kade Ruotolo is the greatest combat athlete we've ever seen.
100%. And they did just announce Kade for another MMA fight for one championship. Hart's over here getting real creative with the super fight matchups. Marcelo Garcia versus Roger in the gi. When I talked to Marcelo and asked him about, I think I had a fan question, ask him about his toughest test. He said that it was Roger, and I had to add on, be like, but what was your thoughts when Roger said that you were the most technical he's ever faced? And he was just so honored, because when they were competing, they would like never look at each other in the eye, never talk to each other, never be friends, because that's kind of how competitors are. And then to hear Roger say that on a podcast, not to his face or anything, he was just like, oh man, like that's super nice. And true.
It's so cool seeing people that have had battles go back and just, you know, be respectful, especially guys that did have or have legacies like those too. I think Roger's probably done. I can only imagine the amount of money it would take to make that super fight. I mean, Craig might have to find another, you know, he might have to find another $10 million to try and make that one happen. And
there's not enough knee pads in the world.
I completely agree with Brandon. You know, to me with Marcelo, it's Gary Tonin, guys. I don't care anybody. It's Gary Tonin versus Marcelo. That is the match.
Yes. Well, we cannot wait to find out more about CJI News. I know a lot of people have been curious about the date. We said last time that it is hoping to align with a similar schedule for another jiu-jitsu event. So we are going to keep our fingers crossed that gets announced sometime soon. For now, we're also going to look at some of the things that you guys have been responding to on CJI and what a potential super fight matchup for Craig could be. Obviously, a lot of people were hype about Mo Jassim versus Craig Jones, but obviously that's not going to happen, Matt. In what
I think it'd be kind of cool. Maybe we get Craig versus multiple celebrity grapplers. Like, let's just do Craig 3v1, Craig versus like Tom Hardy,
Mario Lopez.
You could throw Mario Lopez and Zuckerberg.
Ashton Kutcher.
And one of them in Zuckerberg's allowed to use striking.
I love that. Dude, I was having this thought the other day. I was like, how is jiu-jitsu going to go mainstream? This is how. First of all, Craig Jones, and I already asked him about this subject, and he said no. He's like, I told him, you have to go on Dancing with the Stars. Like when Paige Van Zandt infiltrated the regular media and people started knowing more about MMA, it was huge. Craig needs to go on Dancing with the Stars. I told him this. He's like, no. And I'm like, come on. That is what we need. We also need the Adele Fornerino and Caitlin Clark collab. This is mutually beneficial for both parties. Adele Fornerino, she made a YouTube clip. I wish I had it here and I could show you guys of her playing basketball because they look physically similar, you know, Fournette.
No, that I've never thought of that. That is absolutely hilarious. They do have some similarities.
And Caitlin needs it. I mean, now she already, left the WNBA, but she was getting pretty, a lot of flagrant fouls, a lot of judo techniques could have come to her benefit in those situations. So that is a collab that not only the jiu-jitsu world needs, but also Caitlin Clark. So I think those are the two avenues that we will take in order to really make jiu-jitsu mainstream. We're already getting celebrities involved, so that's good. We need like intellectual people pushing and investing in the sport, but we also need to infiltrate regular media. Thank you.
Yeah, I think the crossovers is really huge. I think sometimes though when guys cross over, they kind of leave jiu-jitsu behind, or they stop. I think sometimes when the guys get so big, I always question how much they're actually training. I think it would be really cool to see something. Yeah, again, like that would hit mainstream media. You imagine just like what would happen if it was like, no. Okay, let's just even say not even multiple. Let's just say, all right, Craig Jones is going to face Zuckerberg, and Zuckerberg's allowed to, he has MMA rules. He can use any MMA technique, and Craig can just grapple. You know how many people would tune into that? Millions would tune into that. Millions upon millions would tune into that.
I love it. That is all the CJI2 news we have for today. I have to circle back to what Lazy Bed is here for, and I'm so happy that Matt Scaff will be able to talk about this topic a little bit. When you're not so much in the MMA world and something like this pops up, it's very exciting news when I can't even call it a promotion because it's a league, almost kind of parallels what PGF has been doing in terms of trying to bring everything that you love about sports into jiu-jitsu. That is a little bit of the Commissioner Darren Owen's goal with the GFL, the Global Fight League, drafting fighters, big name fighters, rising star prospects onto teams represented under a city banner, and also helping athletes out by sharing 50% of the revenue. So obviously this all sounds good on paper, but Matt, when you first heard about this league, like what is your instant reaction?
I think anytime you hear a new idea, you're kind of, you're like, what did I just hear? What they're doing? What they're cities and they're drafting guys and these, who's on a team together? You've got what, Tony Ferguson's in, like, wait, Sage Northcutt, like I hear, oh, Brandon, that's funny. Cause I have heard a few people around here, not from Brandon, but just a few people like, man, it sounds like they're trying to do what the PGF is doing. But anyways, yeah, I think it's a very, very interesting idea. I mean, I'll say this, I think, when you can, I mean, the UFC has been very, very successful. You're talking about billions of dollars are spent on that product. But at the same time, I think to compete with it, you're going to have to do something a little different. And I think everybody thinks like, man, look how the most popular sport in the United States is the NFL. If we can just copy that formula and bring it to grappling, if we can bring that to mixed martial arts, who's to say we can't surpass the UFC in popularity? And it's just a very, very interesting experiment. I think it's a very cool idea. I'm interested. I can't wait to see what happens with it.
Yeah, so there definitely are a lot of questions that I feel like people have been asking on big platforms like Ariel Helwani's show, Town Hall, as Lazy Bed just said. I think Mike Heck did such a good job of interrogating a little bit without being just a straight up hater. I feel like when I don't know if you got to catch any of the draft, Matt Scaff.
I just saw the teams.
You just saw the teams.
The draft. Yes.
Okay, so I was helping host the draft. I was looking at all the social media stuff. So my job was extra funny because no one else on the broadcast team had known some crazy stuff had just happened. So basically with the draft, I think people's normal understanding of a draft, or like with PGF, we didn't know what was going to go on, which athletes were going to get drafted. It was so in the moment in like a live event. But because the GFL did a virtual stream. There was a glitch that happened. Not a glitch, but I think one of the streams, so this is streaming to like many platforms. And one of the platforms, I guess, was running early. And when the TD or producer was working through their graphics, they put up the graphic that had almost all of the GFL roster, like the draft, basically, like all the names to the teams. Not all of it, so it wasn't completely spoiled. But of course, you get the screenshot. Someone puts on MMA Twitter, GFL just put their entire draft up or something like that. And I think the last time I checked, it had 260,000 views. So this was a topic that Darren Owen had to, I guess, confront on Ariel Helwani's show. And I think a lot of the hate that came from the GFL draft talk was like, wow, this was all predetermined and the coaches didn't actually have anything to do with the decision and all this and that, which I think people were taking it way too far and running with that. When I think of like Oscars or award shows, the producers and the people behind the scenes, I don't know if always, but they're prepared beforehand to show the graphics that'll need to be shown for things. So like, I wouldn't say that all award shows or drafts are completely in the moment. But the fact that it was thought that it was going to be all in the moment, and then that happened before the broadcast happened, caused so much havoc online. GFL draft was trending, that one of the #1 topics on Twitter. And so it was so bad. So Matt, if you were, on MMA Twitter and you were expecting to see this draft and you saw that something leaked beforehand, what would be your immediate reaction to something like this new promotion coming up, and that happens?
I think, if let's say I was like, hey, I really want to tune in to watch, I'm super interested, and I saw a leaked draft, like, hey, this is what the teams actually look like. The first thing you're going to do is, of course, is like, okay, let me actually watch the draft. And then if it starts playing out like the leaked list, and you go, oh, okay, well, what's the point of watching anymore? So that is kind of a tough hit. But at the end of the day, while the draft day, I think is interesting, I mean, that's just a very minuscule part of what's going on here. And I'm more interested to see, again, there's so many names like Alan Belcher. When I saw Alan Belcher was there, I was like, Alan Belcher, like I know Alan pretty well. And I was like, oh, dang, like Alan Belcher's on a team. And, there's just, there's a handful of names you're seeing like, man, what are these guys? Like, I know they're still fighting. Alan's been killing it in bare knuckle boxing. It's just they got a very interesting group of people. That's all I couldn't believe some of the names I was reading. I was like, damn, like this is kind of sick. You got Kevin Lee. Like, there's so many really good guys that have a pretty big name doing this.
Yeah. And I agree with Lazy Bed that I think the leak did work out for GFL's benefit as well, because it caused so much controversy. I remember when it originally happened, like no one else on the broadcast knew about it, except for me, because I was handling all the social media stuff. And I think Ariel might have said on the show, like they were trying to make up for it or he was speculating that they might be trying to make up for it in real time because they found out that it was leaked. But I genuinely don't think the majority of the people on the broadcast knew it was leaked. So I don't think there was any rearranging of, like, we stuck to our rundown for the most part. So it was just like a kind of unfortunate thing to happen that I think was a blessing in disguise. And like you just mentioned, a bunch of big names have been signed. And so I think this is like a big point of confusion for people. When they were announcing on Instagram people that have signed, they signed for draft eligibility. So when you're eligible for the draft, that they signed over 400 athletes, and only 120 would be taken because there's only 6 teams representing 6 different cities. So 20 per team. And so I think when they were coming out with all of these banners that said signed without the caption saying draft eligibility, people online are assuming that all these contracts are signed and all this money is being distributed to different figures. And I just saw so much like ridiculous speculation online that I'm like, this is what you get when MMA is a sport where there's real journalists, but then there's also just Twitter accounts that are considered journalists, and there's just random numbers being thrown out like, oh, this fighter got 2.2 million and 1.4. And I'm like, where are you getting these numbers? And then you literally find out that, at Clown Fart Butthead said this, and now it's like a headline on these media pages.
What's one of the big reasons I got off social media is just because of, again, the fake news, of just somebody would share something on Instagram, or so many times guys would come in and they would just be like, dude, did you hear they found like an alien in here? And you're like, what? Like, no way. And you'd look it up and it'd be like a fake. They'd be like, where'd you see it? I saw it on TikTok. And you're like, like there's so many times stuff like that would happen. Or you see like the president's doing this, or this is happening over here. And then you would, again, you would do a little digging into it and you go, oh, this is completely fake, And so, sometimes the everyday person can, break some news. But at the end of the day, a lot of people are just out there throwing, again, fart face, butt licker 43 is just throwing out random stuff. And it's like, he's just out there. Oh, dude, I think Tony Ferguson's making $1 million a fight. And it's like, and it's like, how are they affording that? But I do, when I do look at those names. Now, here's the thing. A guy like Tony Ferguson, they might just be like, hey, Tony, we're going to put you up in a hotel and we're going to give you free food. He might be down to fight. Like, this is a guy, like some of those guys are like, I think some of these guys would fight for free. They just want a platform to fight in front of people. But some of those names, I also am like, man, I wonder how much it costs to get some of these dudes, So if I had to guess, it sounds like there's just millions upon millions of dollars put behind this. I mean, you always question who it's like CJI, like everyone wants to know who's the money man.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was part of the reason why I was excited to be a part of something like this, because everyone was counting CJI out. They're like, they're not going to be able to put on an event in 3 months and all this. I think GFL is a little bit different. Like, I just love living on the edge and kind of experiencing things firsthand. But when people, I think even I was a little bit confused because Darren Owen, the commissioner, recently went on Ariel Helwani, and I think Haymakers made a quote card of his quote that was basically like, at the end of the day, the final say was his decision, and that it wasn't the coaches and team managers. And I guess that part surprised me because I don't know. I just feel like that's like something that the team managers and the coaches should have, the final say over. But I think, to Darren's point, he wants to be able to create the matches and the fights that people want to see. And so being able to trade and make those matches possible is something that is a big priority. But it's also at that point, like, okay, we had this draft and now we're finding out after the fact that, like, I don't know, it wasn't really much of a draft.
Yeah, that's kind of weird. I mean, I hear you. And, a lot of times it's just a big production. It's just hey, we're going to do, it's more of like a formal. Yeah. No, I mean, I agree. I think the people like unpredictable. Like if they go, hey, this draft has happened with the PGF, for instance, it's a complete wild card. I know when I was one of the coaches for the PGF, I mean, I had no clue what was going to happen that day. There wasn't a script. There wasn't anything like that. And so, yeah, I don't know. I do think people also kind of like, it is kind of lame that it wasn't like, hey, live, we're seeing the decisions being made, in that moment. But at the same time, I think this is one of the most fascinating MMA things that have come up in recent years. I mean, we'll see. If I'm going to be honest, I don't have much faith in this promotion. Just because there's a lot of older guys. There's some guys down there. I'm like, man, I don't know if Tony Ferguson needs to continue fighting. There's a few of them. I'm like, I don't know. How many more fights these guys even have left. And I could see this being really successful maybe for a year or so. But I think one of this is the hardest part with MMA, right? So some people only tuned in when Conor fought. And we can see that by the numbers, right? You can see how many buys Conor generated compared to other people. Well, once Conor retires, those numbers haven't even been close to being hit again. With the team aspect, some people go, I don't care. If you're a Boston Celtic, I'm Boston Celtics for life. I don't care if they go 0 for 82 this next NBA season or they win the championship. I'm there through the ups and downs. And that's what grappling, that's what the PGF eventually is trying to get to, where people go, no, I'm a fan of Team Chicago. Like, I'm a fan of the Chicago Snakes or whatever. And that's my squad. And yeah, I loved it. They had Travis Thomas and Ryan Aiken on their squad. Like, that was, but they left. It doesn't matter. They signed this new young guy that's taking their place. I'm super excited about this prospect, you know? And I think that's what's really missing in this, is that once the name disappears, you know, let's say some of these guys, say Tony Ferguson does a fight and he just can't go anymore. Well, now you lose the Tony Ferguson fans, and then you lose, and it's just tough. And then when you get to some of the no-name guys, it's going to be tough against you. You've got to build the team, not the individual. And I still feel like some of these organizations are utilizing the individuals. It's like, no, you got to get a strong team brand. That's the goal.
Yeah. The amount of effort that has gone into it so far. I know it took Darren about 2 years to fundraise for what they have been planning on doing. So he's been grinding. He's been the person that's been talking to all of these athletes and really convincing them that this is something that could be huge. And you have guys like Tyron Woodley who are really at the forefront of it. And I think he's a good figure to have at the forefront of it. Like, when people were freaking out that Tyron Woodley was the first all-around pick, I was like, why is that a big deal? Like, he has so much star power. Like, former champ, what's the big deal? But, and then people started talking about how all the teams were like kind of separated somewhat coincidentally towards the area that they train closest to. I'm like, that makes sense. Like, why would you have a Paige Van Zandt who trains in South Florida be on team Dubai or something like that? Like, I don't know. There was just haters from all different sorts of directions, but it was definitely fun to see these teams get made up. And here we have Team Los Angeles. Alimale McFarland's on there. She lives in San Diego. Paige Van Zandt, Hannah Goldie, Team Miami. I'm just looking at all the girls because that's the first place that my mind goes to. But a very, very stacked team all across. And I think one of the biggest storylines now is the Dillon Danis topic, who was also on Twitter trying to get people. Let's see what BMAC wants to discuss. Let's discuss. PGF has been first mover every major innovation in the sport in the last 4 years. PGF has been first mover every major innovation in the sport in the last 4 years. Matt Scaff, do you get that?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's just saying that I think we've seen a couple people. So let's just say take like the who's next idea, right? Or because that was PGF came out first. I don't know how much I want to get into, you know, like the actual behind the scene details, but like that's a great example of what Brandon I think is talking about, is that we've seen a lot of other shows try to copy, you know, the PGF idea, you know, and I think it's one of those things too, where it's like when the light bulb's being discovered, right? Like, how many people were trying to discover, you know, you have the Edison, and then you obviously have Tesla, and there's supposedly a bunch of other people, and yada, 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 right? PGF, though, one of the things Brandon's always been really good at is just changing things, doing little things here, little things there. And yeah, I think it's been really cool to see, you know, other organizations try to, you know, take some of the idea and try to make it work, you know. And again, with whether it was Who's Next, when they were like, hey, we're going to draft team, we're going to have coaches and we're going to draft teams. And then the coaches are going to draft team. And at the end of the, they're going to, you know, compete for this contract, or they're going to compete for this money, you know, no time limit. And that's what the PGF did. Now the PGF changed that anyways, right? I think that's what Brandon's saying. And I think when you look at this idea, this is ultimately, I think, what the PGF would like to get to, where, again, you have cities and you would go, or like states, like Team Alabama is facing Team Europe, or a team, I wouldn't even say Europe, Team Poland, or whatever, you know, whatever that would look like.
Yeah. And I do like the intention of a billionaire has his own city or has his own team, and it has so much city pride, and he's willing to put in a bunch of money to make sure that this team has the best coaches. Like, I see the vision, and I really appreciate who Darren is as a person, because there's so many people on Twitter that say things like, oh, he's a promoter and he failed at these two other things. Like, okay, if he did, I don't know if that's true. if something, you know, were to have fallen out in other promotions that he's worked, that's even more of a comeback story now. And I think there's a lot of people that are standing behind his idea, his vision. When you have people like Ariel Helwani putting you on the show, I mean, they're both, you know, fellow Canadians, so maybe that's part of the reason, supporting people from your home country. But I don't know. I feel the energy with different promotions that I work for. And that's why I never see myself not working for a PGF, a CJI. And after GFL, I really like the energy of their crew as well. And I've worked with so many different promotions at this point, and I can't say that all promotions have really good energy. So I have faith that, you know, they could potentially get something going. I think the idea of billionaires having a team of fighters is something that people almost like sensationalize. Like it's almost like the gladiators, seeing them go in the pit. Like they want that feeling of like, I own the best fighters in the world.
And look, that's part of history. You know, I think there's times, you know, obviously with the gladiators, you know, these guys were being sold into slavery and then they were fighting. And, you know, this doesn't necessarily compare. Those guys weren't getting paid, you know, like these guys weren't. I think at the end of the day, if you sign a contract, if you just go, hey, if somebody came to me and said, hey, here's $1 million, we want you to eat a jar of pickles every day, you know, or we want you to if I sign that contract and I like, that's on me, you know, it's not like I'm being bought and sold. Like somebody sold me into this, you know, position where now I'm forced to do something against my will. It's like, I mean,
these fighters want to fight.
There's nothing more entertaining than a fight. I think we all can remember. We can all, like, I don't have the best memory, but I can remember seeing fights in school. Like I remember like the first couple big fights I saw. I remember where I was. I remember all that stuff. I remember just being like, oh, you know, like I'm 12 years old seeing two kids fight on a bus, and I'm like, oh my, you know, like it's just crazy. Like there's something in us that we want to watch fight. I don't care who you are. Even if you're disgusted by it, you still kind of have your eye open going, what, you got to tune in. And so I don't know, you know, I think those type of people, the people that can, you know, see maybe, oh, this guy failed here, or this guy failed there, or, you know, they'll look at people's failures. Look, at the end of the day, as human beings, you know, I think it comes down pretty simple. We're trying to do the best we can, and we're trying to be entertained, right? It's that simple. And look, fighting's entertaining. And yeah, I'm definitely not if Tony Ferguson doesn't want to fight anymore, I don't think he should be sold into, you know, another promotion to fight. But if Tony Ferguson's down to fight till he's 100, at the end of the day, look, I don't think Tony Ferguson should fight anymore. I think he's kind of done. But at the end of the day, if he still wants to go out there and do 20 more, I think that's his right.
Yeah, that's definitely a crazy topic. I mean, obviously we're letting people do power slap and stuff, so that has no self-defense at all. Harp's over here saying, please bring the pit. We did have J-Flow Judo post some recent footage of some creative ways to be using the pit and awesome judo skill. So yeah, we're all martial arts fans here. I think the MMA scene is a little bit like, if you're in MMA media, you're jaded because of how much you've been through and experienced these MMA promotions, either, you know, being full of crap, and so you're protective over it. And I try to view everything from a positive standpoint, but hey, I'm very realistic too. So you said that you don't have full faith in this. I think with the right investors, I think this is the perfect time for combat sports, for that disruption, team events. I think it is time. I know IFL was a thing back in the 2000s and it didn't work out, but now we're in a completely new era where streaming is a thing, sports fan, and the biggest commodity today is live sports. So fingers crossed.
I'm more of a cynic, you know. I think that really helps me as a coach because I can see a new trend and I really question everything. You know what I'm saying? I'm not the guy to start a new promotion. You know, that's not me. I'm not a dreamer. I'm a very like in the dirt guy, like, oh, hey, this guy's doing that. I'm going to watch it. I'm going to put it to the test. You know what I'm saying? And so I think, you know, again, what Brandon's done with the PGF, like I never could have done that. Not in a million years, you know, same thing with this, you know? So I will say that I'm always a little bit, when new things come out, I'm always skeptical, you know, cause I don't know. I don't want to get my hopes up. And then, cause I do think this is a sick idea, but at the end of the day, I think we've all especially with these MMA, again, you've worked with a lot of MMA promotions. I've worked with around tons of MMA promotions going to them. And some of them you're like, oh my God, like, I've seen them go, oh man, this event's pretty sick. And then all it takes is a little bit of money issues. And the next one you go to is you're like, oh my God, what's going on here? So I will say that about myself.
It's definitely a crazy time we are living in. It's so fun to watch all of the engagement online, negative and positive. I think it's good no matter what. And I think at the end of the day, MMA fans want other promotions to be successful so that there isn't so much of monopoly. I did see one post or one YouTuber say that MMA fans just want all the best fighters in one promotion. And I'm like, I don't agree with that. I don't think people want that. Like, I think I would rather have there be multiple promotions that are just genuinely competitive. But that's like a long way to go when you have the UFC that is just the powerhouse that it is.
Yeah. Well, we're seeing this with the NBA. I know the NBA is doing more and more global stuff. And we've seen this at the last Olympics. I mean, we sent an insane squad and they almost lost to Serbia in the finals, And Serbia, yeah, they have the best player in the world in Nikola Jokic, but I mean, the rest of the dudes, I mean, there's some very talented players playing overseas, incredibly talented. And some of these teams can give the NBA teams a run for their money. And the NBA recognizes that. And so they are trying. There have been talks about trying to have teams now in Europe and maybe starting a European league. And then maybe it would be like, the European champion's going to face the U.S. champion. Like, with soccer, they've always done that with Champions League, where they take the best squads in Europe, like the French league and all these others, the English Premier League and all that. And then everybody loves the Champions League because it's just not all the best players play in the same league, but they do get together sometimes. I think that's very important that the best players do get together sometimes, and we do get to answer those questions. Well, I mean, who is the best team? Who is the best player? Because it is tough, because some people will go, like Patchy, who is in Bellator. A lot of people think he's the best fighter. Even Marab said, like, dude, he's the toughest guy. Like, and I've heard he's just incredible, but we'll never really know, because the UFC would never want to hurt their brand like that. And I don't necessarily think it hurts their brand if one of their fighters loses, but they just don't want to give any credibility to anybody else. And I do think that hurts the sport in the long run.
Yeah, I remember when AJ McKee was really on fire in Bellator and people wanted to see those matchups. And like Harp says, we miss a lot of good fights because of split promotions, but GFL is looking to kind of, I guess, finish those storylines that were unfinished that we never got in some other promotions. Like, I would love if it was like a Paige Van Zandt versus Alimale McFarlane.
I'm 100% tuning in. I mean, I think that like the first event, I'll give it. I think it's sick. I think there's some really cool names and matchups to be made. So yeah.
And like Base Gotti said, one is more exciting than UFC a lot of the times, and they do a different business model, including all martial arts. So I think that's super big, and I love how they give a platform specifically for jiu-jitsu. We'll be talking more about everything that one has coming up as well. But guys, we were just nerding out over combat sports for over an hour. I got to let Matt Scaff go and live his life. Thank you guys so much for joining the stream, and we will be talking about other fun things. Let me know if talking about the GFL is something that you guys are interested in continuing doing on this channel, because usually I just do jiu-jitsu stuff. And don't forget to smash that like button. It helps so much so we can get this content out to other folks that like to nerd out as well. Thank you, Harps, for being always there for us and commenting on everything. And by the time we come back, CJI2 News should have more official news coming out. So we cannot wait, and we will see you guys next